How can we just go in, take everything, the beer, the parking, whatever the price of tickets are, and put it in a pot, split it up fairly based on the number of people that come, and they're like, you're gonna have to take a pay cut. No problem. I make a lot of money.
At an age when many artists settle comfortably into their legacy, Kid Rock has chosen a very different path. One marked by bold statements and unapologetic challenges. When a musician known for blending rock, country, and rap calls out a stalwart icon like Bruce Springsteen, it demands attention. What could have sparked this unlikely confrontation between two very different American rock figures? This story isn't just about rivalry. It's about the clash of generations, ideals, and styles in the heart of American music culture. The unexpected call-out. When Kid Rock publicly took aim at Bruce Springsteen, it shocked the music world. For years, Springsteen has been celebrated as the voice of the American working class, a rock legend with an almost untouchable status. Yet, here was Kid Rock, a musician whose persona is just as bold but far more unfiltered, stepping into the spotlight with a pointed critique. This wasn't just a casual jab or fleeting comment. It struck at the heart of Springsteen's carefully cultivated image. The moment raised questions. Why would Kid Rock single out an icon so deeply entrenched in American music history? The roots of the call-out lie partly in contrasting representations of what rock music stands for. Springsteen's work has long been associated with blue-collar narratives, social justice, and a kind of earnest patriotism. Kid Rock, on the other hand, embodies a more rebellious and populist spirit that blurs genres and challenges norms. His message appealed to a different slice of the American audience, one that often felt disconnected from the traditional rock establishment. This cultural tension laid the groundwork for a very public reckoning between the two musicians. But the specific incident that sparked Kid Rock's exposé was more than just generational disagreement. It came amid heated discussions about authenticity, political alignment, and the evolving definition of American identity. Kid Rock's challenge questioned whether Springsteen's legacy still resonated with the realities faced by many Americans today, or if it had become a sanitized symbol in a rapidly changing culture. His remarks hinted at a deeper discontent with what he saw as hypocrisy or disconnect in Springsteen's public persona. Adding fuel to the fire was the timing. At 55, Kid Rock was far from a newcomer, yet he still represented a younger, more defiant voice compared to Springsteen, who has spent decades solidifying his status as a rock institution. This age dynamic brought a layer of generational defiance that energized both fans and critics. The public feud tapped into broader cultural conversations playing out in America about change, tradition, and who gets to speak for real people. The call-out also kind of brushed up against Springsteen's political activism, which, while celebrated by many, hasn't been received the same way everywhere. Kid Rock's remarks made it sound like Springsteen's politics felt out of step, or maybe even a little performative to some of the crowd. And then it throws you into questions about how musicians really navigate being not just entertainers, but kinda cultural and political figures, and how that mess with credibility across different fan bases. It set off back-and-forth debates about the overlap of art, activism, and authenticity, ideas both artists wrestle with in their own very different ways. Behind the curtain, it showed how complicated fame and legacy can be in the music industry. Both Kid Rock and Springsteen built a lot of their careers on intensely personal storylines, but those accounts don't always line up in the public imagination. The call-out carried the risk of cracking long-standing fan loyalty, and it also made people reflect on how an artist's history gets reread or challenged as new voices come forward. It underlined that touchy balance between giving respect to legends and still letting newer generations steer their own tastes. At its heart, this surprise clash was more than just two names in the spotlight. It became this flashpoint for wider arguments about cultural authority, narrative control, and American identity. It pushed observers to ask what it even means to be an authentic rock musician today, and who counts as the real spirit of the genre. The whole conversation that blew up from Kid Rock's words was about music too, sure, but it was also about politics, identity, and the direction society is moving in. Their differences were not just about style, but about two distinct visions of American music and identity. Kid Rock's musical roots. Born Robert James Ritchie in 1971, Kid Rock's journey from humble beginnings to rock stardom is anything but conventional. Hailing from Romeo, Michigan, he quickly developed a musical style that defied easy classification, blending rock, hip-hop, country, and southern rock. This blend appealed to a wide audience, especially in rural and working-class communities often overlooked by mainstream music. His persona was shaped as much by his musical experimentation as by his outspoken, rebellious attitude. From his early albums like Grits Sandwiches for Breakfast to his breakthrough, Devil Without a Cause in 1998, Kid Rock carved out a niche that combined Southern swagger with rock and roll grit. Songs like Bawit Daba and Cowboy showcased his ability to mix raw energy with genre crossover appeal, breaking the mold of traditional rock. His music wasn't just about sound, it was a cultural statement that challenged norms and embraced working-class pride mixed with a freewheeling spirit. Kid Rock's image is inseparable from his sound. Bold tattoos, trucker hats, and a brash stage presence create a figure who seems unapologetically authentic to his roots. Unlike Springsteen's earnest storytelling approach, Kid Rock's style is confrontational and infused with humor and defiance. His relationship with fame has been complex, marked by hits, controversy, and reinvention, but always grounded in a desire to represent the overlooked voices of America. His embrace of patriotism is also way more direct, and frankly more politically charged than a lot of rock icons. Especially in the 2010s, Kid Rock got pretty vocal about his conservative views, and he used his platform to hit themes like freedom, tradition, and American identity. That political bent tends to put him at odds with mainstream artists and media, but it also solidified his standing with fans who feel like he's a genuine representative of their values, their lifestyle. Musically, Kid Rock comes off as a self-made artist who rejects industry norms. He's blending genres in a way that was less common before it became trendy. Throwing rap and country into a rock foundation challenged the purists, but it also attracted a pretty loyal following. That boundary-pushing style is kind of the lens for how he views other rock legends. To him, rock isn't some museum piece, or even really just a stage for politics. It's a living, breathing force, shaped by individual grit and defiance. Over time, he built a brand that merges music with cultural commentary, like it's all part of the same package. This dual role makes him both entertainer and provocateur, and it changes how people receive his critiques. His willingness to say what he means, even when backlash is right there waiting, is part of why his call-out of Springsteen landed so hard. If Kid Rock's path embodies rebellion and boundary crossing, then Bruce Springsteen's legacy offers a contrasting story, one built on tradition, storytelling, and a different kind of relationship with America's working class. Springsteen's legacy and persona. Bruce Springsteen, often hailed as the boss, has crafted a career defined by evocative storytelling, passionate performances, and an unwavering commitment to blue-collar America. Since bursting onto the national stage in the 1970s, Springsteen has remained a symbol of working-class aspirations, struggles, and resilience. His albums, especially Born to Run, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and Born in the USA, are cornerstones of American rock music with themes rooted in hope and hardship. Springsteen's lyrical style has always focused on detailed characters and narratives that connect deeply with listeners' lived experiences. He sings about factory workers, small towns, and the pursuit of the American dream, with a sincerity that earned him both critical acclaim and devoted fans. His music bridges personal stories with broader social commentary, appealing to those who see their lives reflected in his songs. Throughout his career, Springsteen cultivated a no-nonsense persona, hard-working, authentic, and politically engaged. Unlike the flashy rock stars of his era, he projected an image of earnestness and integrity. This identity extended beyond music into activism, where he advocated for labor rights, veterans, and social justice causes, positioning him as a conscious voice within rock's cultural landscape. Despite his working-class appeal, Springsteen's cultural status elevated him to near-mythic levels. He is often viewed as America's musical moral compass, a figure whose opinions carry weight far beyond stadium concerts. This reverence can create distance, however, as some question whether his message has remained relevant or become part of an established elite. Springsteen is, also well known for those elaborate performances and the loyal E Street Band, and somehow that has kept concerts as these communal get-togethers where people feel connected through shared things. His knack for connecting across generations of fans is proof of that lasting charisma and narrative drive, even when musical trends were shifting around him like a slow tide. On the political side, Springsteen has been very openly critical of conservative policies, and he's supported progressive causes. His speeches and activism have turned him into a polarizing person in certain circles, but it also solidifies his standing with fans who like that he actually engages. This kind of overlap between music and politics really adds to his overall persona as an artist who means more than just, entertainment. Still, the whole blue-collar, authentic image isn't totally clean. No. Some people claim that the way he delivers political messaging has sort of wandered off from what his original audience wanted, or that the celebrity rapper puts distance between him and the very folks he sings about. That friction kind of creates openings for challengers who doubt the sincerity or ask if his story still fits the present. At the same time, Springsteen's impact on rock and American music is hard to deny. He set a standard for what rock could do as narrative craft and social reflection, and that influenced a lot of artists even outside his lane. So understanding his legacy helps explain why Kid Rock's exposé isn't just a private jab, but a direct collision with one of rock's most iconic voices. This dynamic tension makes the Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen clash not just a feud, but a flashpoint in the story of modern American rock. Clash of cultural identities. At the heart of the tension between Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen lies a profound cultural divide, one that reflects contrasting visions of America itself. Springsteen's music embodies an often nostalgic, idealized view of the working class, rooted in the industrial Northeast, blue-collar values, and a collective sense of struggle and hope. His storytelling carries the weight of shared history, community, and the dream of a better tomorrow. However, for many of Kid Rock's fans, that vision feels distant, cozy, and sometimes out of touch with their lived realities. Kid Rock represents a different cultural identity, one forged in the South and Midwest, blending country pride, rebellious individualism, and a rugged brand of patriotism. His music and persona appeal to those who feel alienated by coastal elites or the intellectualism often associated with traditional rock icons. He channels the rawness of small-town America, where self-reliance and outspoken attitudes are prized. This divergence creates a cultural fault line between the two artists, each becoming a symbol for different ways of seeing and experiencing the country. The contrast isn't just geographic. It's about how each articulates belonging and identity. Springsteen's America is collective. Its struggles are shared. Its victories communal. Kid Rock's America is fiercely individual, defined by personal freedom and a distrust of authority. Where Springsteen evokes the dignity of labor unions and social programs, Kid Rock champions rugged independence and skepticism toward government control. These differing narratives feed a broader national conversation about who real Americans are. These cultural identities also shape how each musician engages with their audience and media. Springsteen's appeal to universal values and social consciousness has earned him reverence in mainstream and progressive circles. Kid Rock's bluntness and refusal to conform resonate with audiences who may feel marginalized or caricatured by dominant cultural narratives. Their feud brings into sharp relief who gets to represent authentic America in rock music, and by extension, in the country's ongoing cultural dialogue. This divide is kinda amplified by different lifestyle rhythms and aesthetic decisions. Springsteen's earnest, somewhat polished vibe clashes with Kid Rock's rougher, tattooed, and defiant image. They seem to live in separate visual and thematic spaces. Springsteen's stories are often anchored in the past and shared recall, while Kid Rock leans into rebelliousness that drags genre lines around and nudges at cultural taboos. That contrast keeps feeding the idea that one is a caretaker of tradition, and the other is some kind of disruption machine. Age and generational attitudes are part of it too. Springsteen, born in 1949, belongs to a cohort molded by the post-war American dream, heavy industry, and the civil rights movement. Kid Rock, born in 1971, grew up through economic adjustments, cultural breakage, and political polarization. You can still feel those formative experiences in their music and public persona, so the whole cultural clash becomes a mirror for wider generational frictions inside American life. The media and a lot of fans tend to frame this as more than a face-off between two performers. It's presented like competing blueprints for modern America, like urban versus rural, establishment versus outsider, progressive versus conservative. Sure, these oppositions are oversimplified, but they catch the emotional center of why the Kid Rock and Springsteen clash still lands hard. It's more than a personal feud. It reads as a symbol for identity conflicts in culture, rolling out across the country. Both artists carry pieces of the American spirit, just in very different wrappers. Their disagreement basically highlights how rock music moved from a kind of broadly unified cultural force into a more fractured stage that reflects a polarized society. Grasping that cultural gap is key for making sense of the public reaction to their conflict and why it feels so sharply. Can two fundamentally different expressions of Americanness coexist within the same musical tradition, or will one inevitably overshadow the other? Political and social undercurrents. Beneath the surface of musical differences, the Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen feud is partly fueled by their divergent political and social views, a reflection of the polarized times in which they live. Springsteen has long been identified with progressive political causes, openly supporting labor rights, advocating for veterans, and criticizing conservative policies. His political activism is woven into his music and public appearances, shaping his image as a socially conscious artist who uses his platform to promote change. Kid Rock, conversely, has embraced a more conservative and populist stance, vocal in his support for gun rights, military veterans, and traditional American values. His political commentary is often blunt, unapologetic, and aligned with the sentiments of many rural and working-class Americans who feel alienated by mainstream media and political elites. This ideological divide between the two artists mirrors the larger cultural clash playing out across the country, from voting patterns to media consumption. Springsteen's critiques of former President Donald Trump and conservative agendas have drawn both admiration and criticism. His engagement in political discourse positions him firmly within the liberal camp, aligning him with movements for social justice, economic equality, and environmental causes. However, this stance also alienates segments of the American population who see his views as out of touch with their realities or overly partisan. Kid Rock, on the other hand, has courted controversy by positioning himself as a voice for conservative America. He has openly supported Trump, criticized what he perceives as cancel culture, and embraced a counter-mainstream identity. His political messaging is integral to his brand, appealing to fans who view him as defending their freedoms and pushing back against cultural shifts they oppose. These political undercurrents intensify their artistic rivalry. When Kid Rock assails Springsteen, he is not just taking aim at a fellow musician, but challenging a political and cultural figurehead whose ideals clash with his own. Likewise, Springsteen's critiques of populism and conservatism place him at odds with the values Kid Rock champions. Their conflict thus reflects the broader polarization shaping American discourse. The social implications are equally significant. Springsteen's advocacy tends to emphasize community, inclusivity, and systemic reform, while Kid Rock's rhetoric often highlights individual liberty, skepticism of government, and cultural preservation. These contrasting views tap into different social experiences and frustrations within the diverse American landscape, intensifying emotional responses from their respective bases. As cultural identities clash and political lines harden, the music becomes a battleground for competing visions of America, where icons like Springsteen and Kid Rock personify the forces pulling the country in different directions. Fans and public reactions. The public reaction to the Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen feud was as polarized as their respective fan bases. Springsteen's longtime admirers largely saw Kid Rock's remarks as disrespectful, viewing them as an attack on an artist who has stood for decades as a cultural icon and a voice for the working class. Social media lit up with defenses of Springsteen's legacy, emphasizing his storytelling prowess and political activism. For many, Springsteen represents sincerity and depth, qualities they felt Kid Rock's challenge unfairly questioned. On the other side, Kid Rock's supporters applauded his courage to speak out against what they perceived as Springsteen's elitism and disconnect. Many fans identified with Kid Rock's straightforward, no-nonsense style and found his critique refreshing in an era where cultural gatekeepers often dominate narratives. His message resonated particularly with those who feel alienated by mainstream media and believe that certain artists have lost touch with the average American's reality. Online forums and comment sections became battlegrounds reflecting these deep divisions. Media coverage ran the gamut from framing the feud as a clash of rock legends to portraying it as a microcosm of America's cultural and political schisms. Some outlets emphasized the generational and ideological contrasts, while others treated it as mere celebrity spectacle. This disparity showed how layered public perception was. Some saw genuine cultural conflict, others just drama. The debate often expanded beyond music, feeding into broader discussions about identity, politics, and class. Interestingly, the conversation also drew attention from artists and industry insiders. Some musicians weighed in, expressing surprise or disapproval, while others sided with Kid Rock's right to voice dissent. This highlighted the complicated relationships within the rock community itself, where respect for legacy can coexist uneasily with demand for innovation or disruption. Fans of both artists found themselves engaging more deeply in these cultural cross-currents. Social media sort of amplified voices on both sides, turning the whole feud into trending conversations, and those viral threads you can't quite avoid. Memes, videos, and commentaries kept proliferating, some of it almost playful, other parts really sharp-edged. The digital arena made the Clash feel accessible to a global audience, so it spread way beyond the usual traditional rock fan bubble. But then again, it also meant opinions got cooked up inside echo chambers a lot, reinforcing what people already believed and basically cranking up polarization. Also, it's worth saying that a lot of fans are emotionally invested in both artists. For decades, Springsteen's music has meant more than just entertainment. It's been kind of a soundtrack for identity, grit, and struggle. Kid Rock's music and persona do a similar thing for his crowd too, like a badge of pride and defiance, rather than just a sound. When those deeply personal connections to a song or a whole vibe collide, reactions usually become intense and sometimes protective or defensive, even if that isn't what anyone meant. Some fans got annoyed that the feud itself took over. They wanted the attention to stay with the music, not the personalities, and not the politics. That really points to a tension inside fan communities, like how you stay loyal to the artists while also wrestling with how public they are. In the process, the feud pushed many listeners to look again at their own relationship with these musicians, and sometimes that even led them to revisit their own cultural and political viewpoints. As the cultural conflict deepened, it set the stage for Kid Rock's motivations to come into sharper focus, revealing why he chose this moment and method to confront Springsteen so directly. Kid Rock's motivations and strategy. Kid Rock's decision to expose Bruce Springsteen at this particular juncture was no accident. It aligned with his broader strategy to assert himself as a cultural voice for a portion of America feeling sidelined. At 55, Kid Rock occupies a unique place, experienced enough to command respect, but still positioned as the insurgent challenging the status quo. His motivations intertwine personal ambition, genuine cultural critique, and a desire to redefine what it means to be an authentic rock musician in the 21st century. Part of Kid Rock's approach is rooted in his rejection of traditional gatekeepers in the music industry. He has openly challenged norms around genre boundaries, political expectations, and celebrity behavior throughout his career. Calling out Springsteen, a figure often regarded as inviolable, was a way to disrupt the mythos of rock's establishment and stake a claim for a new kind of expression that embraces complexity, contradiction, and populism. Given the polarized political climate, Kid Rock's critique also functions as a calculated appeal to his core audience, many of whom share his conservative values and cultural skepticism. His public statements often emphasize standing up to perceived elitism and political correctness, positioning himself as a champion of free speech and individualism. This strategic alignment ensures that his exposure of Springsteen resonates as more than personal criticism. It becomes a cultural rallying cry. Moreover, Kid Rock's critiques tap into this growing dissatisfaction some folks have toward old-school icons, whose messages might feel kinda outdated or, overly scrubbed. By pointing at what he sees as Springsteen's disconnect from real America, Kid Rock tries to grab that authenticity card in a time when a lot of people seem to want voices that are not fully filtered. His choice to take a swing at a well-known, kinda revered name disrupts the usual rules and sort of reignites talk about relevance and integrity in music. On a personal note, Kid Rock's past as an outsider and self-made artist feeds into why he's so interested in challenging the stories that get pushed by big figures like Springsteen. His own career is a mix of defiance and reinvention, so it makes sense he would keep questioning authority, and also that old tradition stuff. Going after Springsteen lands right in line with that persona. Loud, confrontational, and unapologetically tied to his own idea of an American identity. Also, his timing doesn't feel accidental. He seems aware of how media cycles work and where attention goes. These days, with social media making beefs move at warp speed into viral territory, He uses controversy like a lever to stay in the spotlight and widen his audience. That move keeps even people who are not in his usual crowd still checking him out, which in turn expands his reach and keeps the conversation moving in a way that helps his brand. The intertwining of fans' powerful reactions and Kid Rock's calculated resolve underscores how deeply this conflict resonates, promising that the conversation around authenticity. What this means for rock's future. The clash between Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen illuminates much more than just a personal rivalry. It signals a pivotal moment for rock music's identity and future direction. For decades, rock was the unifying soundtrack of American youth and culture, often carrying messages of rebellion, social consciousness, and shared experience. Today, however, the genre faces fragmentation, as changing tastes and cultural divides pull its audience in multiple directions. This feud captures that tension between legacy and reinvention, tradition and disruption. Kid Rock's confrontation suggests a desire among some artists and fans for rock music to break free from its historical constraints and embrace more diverse voices and narratives. His blend of genres and politically charged approach reflects a new kind of rock musician, one who operates outside traditional boundaries and embraces complexity, contradictions, and populist sentiments. This approach challenges long-held ideas about what rock music should look like and who it should represent. Springsteen, in contrast, embodies rock's classic values, storytelling rooted in working-class struggles, gradual social change, and a collective sense of purpose. His career and public persona symbolize stability, history, and moral authority within the genre. The tension between these two worldviews reflects broader debates about rock music's relevance and evolution in an era when digital platforms and shifting cultural priorities reshape artistic expression and audience engagement. The feud also somehow exposes how deeply rock music is threaded into American political and cultural identity, like really not just background stuff. As rock icons turn into signs for different visions of the country, the musical arguments start to echo bigger national talks about division, authenticity, and who actually belongs. Whether it's Springsteen's progressive leanings or Kid Rock's populist style talk, music doesn't sit off to the side of politics anymore. It's actively in the mix, shaping public discourse. For the industry, this may hint at a change in who acts like the gatekeepers of rock culture. Back when critics and major labels picked the genre's direction, those voices had the loudest authority. But now audiences hold more leverage through social media and streaming platforms and a bunch of fast feedback. Artists like Kid Rock, who speak straight to a segment of disenfranchised listeners, show that rock's next chapter could rely on connecting with people in ways that feel genuine, even when communities disagree with each other a bit too much. At the same time, respect for rock's past still feels solid among a lot of fans and insiders. Springsteen's lasting influence reminds us that rock's foundational values, empathy, rebellion, storytelling, still land with power. The tough part for rock going forward will be balancing reverence for those traditions with a willingness to make room for fresh ideas, new faces, and voices that mirror today's cultural complexity instead of pretending it's simple. As rock music keeps running into these tensions, the Kid Rock Springsteen episode works almost like a case study in how personal conflict can spill into larger conversations. It suggests that rock's energy isn't only in sound or style, but also in its ability to move forward through debate and dissent. That push-pull is what keeps creativity burning, nudges things past the usual boundaries, and helps the genre stay relevant across generations that keep shifting. From generational clashes to cultural battles, Kid Rock's challenge to Bruce Springsteen is more than a feud. It's a reflection of rock music's evolving place in America. This story reveals how authenticity, identity, and rebellion continue to shape the genre's future. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories behind the music that moves us.